This is Weirdly Enough, your regular podcast for strange stories and amazing facts, delivered straight to your favorite podcast directory and at weirdlyenough.com. Now, here are your hosts, Andy and Len.
Now then. Oh, we're back again. Oh, I can't really say that. Now then. The only reason I'm saying that, I watched that documentary about Savile over on that old Netflix there. He's just one weird character.
Pretty chilling stuff.
Very chilling stuff.
And we were just talking about, because normally pre-recording of the podcast, we normally have a quick meeting in a well-known chain coffee store.
Yes.
And over some skinny lattes and cream horns, we would normally have a wee chat about what we're going to do. But we're just chatting about that whole thing. And I said it's like an example of hiding in plain sight.
Yes, exactly. He said so many times, I'm a bad man, I get up to all sorts, and people would just, oh, Jimmy, yes.
It's just...
It's a double bluff.
There's a friend of mine, and he was complaining because his significant other, like a lot of women, has a fascination for true crime.
Right, okay.
Because true crime would be
like a lot of women.
Well, no. Like I'm not being. Don't cancel me. Don't cancel me. I'm not being sexist. It's a statistically true observation. The true crime market is ever growing in the UK, and most of the readership would be female. And there's a number of psychological theories about that, but men, it's never really taken off in the male market. The magazines and books that sell for true crime would be more towards the female end. And
it's strange.
And if you ever notice,
it would be men would be into it.
And if you ever notice these magazines like Take a Break,
oh yeah,
for example, you'll have like recipes for cake making mixed in with like just horrendous orgies of violence and god awful stuff. There's a guy. Have you ever come across a guy on YouTube called Rob Ager?
Rob Ager, no, I haven't.
Yeah, he's quite a genial kind of chap. He's a Scouser.
Okay.
But his whole thing is kind of media and film theory and stuff like that. He normally does stuff about films.
Rob Ager, right. Okay.
But he decided to do a quick sort of detour into true crime recently, and he did a short piece about that. And it was actually quite interesting, some of the observations. But anyway, my chum, he was complaining because and it is a thing, actually. She's got a fascination for serial killers.
Right.
And she's always going on these Netflix binges and stuff on YouTube and buying books about it. And, she's done all the UK ones, just working her way through all the American ones now. And he was complaining because he's just like, that's aggressive and horrible and depressing. But, I have a fascination for it as well, but not the gruesome stuff. I'm not really fussed in the gruesome stuff. It's more the psychology of it.
Yes. I got fascinated by Nielsen, and it's just the way, the interview tapes, and the kind of way that he was glad to get caught. And, he felt the police actually did him a service by catching him, and he was kind of thanking them for it. And it was just like, it was mind-blowing, that side of things, But yeah, I get where you're coming from.
And it's compare and contrast Nielsen with Fred West.
Yeah.
Because Fred West had a really low intelligence to the point of maybe having learning difficulties, whereas Nielsen's very intellectual, very high IQ, and Nielsen was very like a respectable character, and worked in the DHSS and Muswell Hill, and he just had this kind of Jekyll and Hyde kind of thing, But anyway, we're going off on a complete tangent there.
I'm just thinking about this country and all the stuff about Fred West that her father talks about. Well, Daisy May Cooper's father talking about. I was thinking
it's up to yourself, but and weirdly enough, going forward into the future, we might do the odd bit of true crime.
Yeah, going forward,
but not as the odd, because I was thinking. As long as it kind of is in the remit, if that makes any sense. Like I've always wanted to do a bit of who was Jack the Ripper. The way there's different theories of it. So obviously, being a family show, we're not going to go into the gruesome details of what went on, but we could do the different theories about who the Ripper might have been.
Yes,
I think it'd be quite interesting.
Yeah. You ever watch what We Do in the Shadows?
It's the thing about vampires.
Matt Berry's character turns around at one point and says, I was Jack the Ripper.
Jack the Ripper.
Jack the Ripper. as Matt Berry would say. Genius guy. I've been rewatching Toast recently. It is great. Anyway, we're getting way off subject. Today we're going to be talking about the Dodleston Messages. Am I saying that right?
The Dodleston Messages. Yeah. Basically, this is a weird one. It was a few weeks ago. I was sort of in a mild quandary about, because I was like, thinking, God, we need to do more episodes, but I don't know what to do here.
Oh dear, you're running out.
There's a lot of, well, you can never run out. I mean, you say this is a misconception. You can never run out. I mean, there's an infinite variety of topics. However, the problem is, with today's cancel culture,
yes,
you have to kind of be cautious about how you approach things, and you know what's appropriate, and then you get some topics and they're really interesting, but they're too vast to kind of fit into a short podcast. But I came across completely randomly, because there's a guy called Ben the Porter, and he's an interesting character because he's a former hospital porter. He used to work out
of like Savile.
No, he was completely. He's a nice guy. Like he worked out of John Radcliffe Hospital.
Okay, yeah.
In Oxford, so he's like Ben the J.R. Porter.
Yeah, it's not this guy Ben Porter.
No, it's Ben the Porter. He's a kind of Ben Emlyn Jones, you call him.
Right. Okay.
He's a genial character. I think he's good. I'd love to. I've had some interactions with him on Twitter. He's
very
good. Not, he's quite a nice bloke, but he was doing he does a thing called reply to comments videos.
Okay.
And it's kind of crazy because he'll go on for like 2 hours and he'll point by point answer comments to his videos that he's done. Yeah. But anyway, as one of the comments was, somebody randomly says, "Oh, do you ever want to do a thing about the Dodleston Messages?"
Yeah.
And I was like, "Oh, what's quite interesting, but maybe look into that sometime." And I was thinking, Dodleston Messages, what's that all about?
What is it? Yeah.
So I randomly googled it, and I came off of a thing on YouTube that was quite interesting. But it's an interesting story. Basically, in 1989, there was a book came out called The Vertical Plane.
Yeah.
And basically, it was told the story. It's described as a unique supernatural detective story. And basically, the story is that in the autumn of 1984, a teacher called Ken, his partner Debbie, and their aspiring comedian friend called Nicola are living in the 18th century Meadow Cottage, which is located in the village of Dodleston. That's Dodleston.
Yes.
Which is in the Welsh Marches.
Mm-hmm.
Now he was renovating for a few months, but it got a bit weird because they started like witness poltergeist activity in the cottage.
Yes.
Footprints going up a wall, furniture and other items being moved about, and strange messages scrawled on the walls in chalk. Now this is the early 80s, and Ken was something of a early computer enthusiast.
Okay.
He was a bit of an early adopter.
Yes, very early.
And he borrowed a BBC, you'll know about this, a BBC Micro Model B computer, if you can remember them.
I remember back when everybody else had those Sinclair Spectrums and different things. You remember the one with the rubber keyboard? And my parents got me the BBC B Micro. So this is educational.
This is maybe the same one you had done.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
A BBC Micro Model B computer and some floppy disks.
Mine had the cassettes.
God, you must have been really early then.
Yeah,
cassettes. From his work, and Nicola was supposed to use these to write comedy scripts and sketches on.
Yeah. Because
she was an aspiring comedian. It was set up on the kitchen table. Now, one night they all went out for a few swift ones in the local pub, and they came home to find the BBC computer still on with a new file saved on the floppy disk. File name was KDN.
Right.
And there was a mysterious message on it, and it says, "Ken, Debbie, Nick, true are the nightmares of a person that fears. Safe are the bodies of the silent world. Turn, pretty flower, turn towards the sun. For that would be a good song, actually. Sell the music.
For you, nearly a haiku.
Yeah. For ye shall grow and sow, but the flower reaches too high and withers in the burning light." Which is a strange poem, and this is the first of what would become known in the paranormal community as the Dodleston Messages.
So they were all saved on this floppy disk
drive, in like a little file.
And was the computer left turned on, or
it was left on? Yeah.
Yeah.
because maybe after a few beers they were going to try and write some comedy sketches or whatever, you know. But
right, okay.
A couple of months later, they left the computer on again when they're all out. When they came home again, they find a new file on the disk called REATA, REATA.
Mm-hmm.
And the file is written in what Ken finds out is 16th century English.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And it goes as follows. I write, this is a nightmare to read, but bear with me. I write on behal they of men what strange words thou speak, although I must confess that I have also been ill-schooled. Sometimes methinks alterations are somewhat barful, for they break that's a nightmare, may I sleeps in my bed. Thou art goodly man who have fanciful women who dwell in mine home. That was maybe your doll that was doing the comedy sketches, the fanciful woman. I have no want to affray, for only sith mine half-witted antic has ripped a twin. Mine bound half I been wretched a night. I have seen men alterations. Lastly, charge house and no home. 'Tis a fitting place, lights which devil maketh and costly things that only mine friend Edmund Gray can afford, or the king himself. 'Twas a great crime to have bribed mine house. Signed LW. So they replied to this message by typing on the computer, and they received a reply later that day from someone who's apparently called LW. And he says that he's writing from the year 1521.
Right. What age was the house that this all took place in? There was an old farmhouse, was it?
It wasn't. It wasn't 400 years old. He says the current monarch is Henry VIII, and he wants to know what they're doing with his house.
Right.
And they correspond with this person, and they find out that LW stands for Lucas Wainman, and this person lived in a house that was where the cottage, Meadow Cottage, stands.
Right.
So this was obviously like a previous on the side, sort of way. He kept livestock in the land around his house. He'd been married with a son, but both wife and child died of the plague in 1517. Now Lucas has been having visions into the future of the 1980s. Saying the renovations done to the building and the people living there, and they gradually built up a friendship. Now Lucas had initially believed that Ken, Nick and Debbie were demons or ghosts, citing paranormal activity that occurred in his home similar to what the housemates were experiencing, and basically each party thought the other was a ghost, so he was seeing them and he thought they were ghosts.
Yes.
And they obviously are thinking he's a ghost.
Right.
But he's not.
It's like a kind of a time shift thing, yeah.
So he's not a ghost as such.
Yeah.
It's just some sort of weird bend in the time,
yes.
you know. And the messages only appear when they're out of the house. They try to figure out if there's somehow an intruder doing this, and they test Lucas in various ways. Now, they involved researchers from the Society for Psychical Research, and Lucas in the 1520s is starting to test Ken and his chums in the 80s, because he thinks they're a hoax.
Okay. Yeah.
He thinks somebody's planning on tracking him. He's like, no, what?
Yes.
You know what I mean? Now, the Society for Psychical Research investigates 3 times, but they can't find any evidence of this spirit activity. And then Debbie starts to have vivid dreams, where she goes back in time to the 1520s to interact with Lucas. And then Lucas talks about talks about these meetings and his communications. So he's like sat in the 1520s and this mysterious ghost appears.
Right.
Debbie.
Yeah.
And they're like interacting.
It's from modern times, yeah, from
1984, yeah. Lucas says he's communicating with them on a Liam's boist, and they're like, what was a Liam's boist? And then they work out it's a box of lights.
Right.
So how did the box of lights go there?
So he's got a BBC B in 15.
Well, we don't know. He's got a box of lights.
Yeah.
Lucas says, he said your time is 1985. And then he goes, I thought you were also from 2109, like your friend who brought the box of lights. So there's more complication in the mix.
2109.
So what's the 2109?
So it's some, yeah.
So whoever the person is brought him the names. Lucas says this 2109 person is called One, and that he's green coloured and a time traveller from 2109. So Ken leaves a message on the computer saying, calling 2109.
Yeah.
So then somebody from 2109 starts leaving impenetrable messages on the BBC computer, saying that the events they're experiencing have a wider purpose. Now, they never actually claimed to be from the year 2109, they just signed their messages with that number. Their first message is Ken, Deb, Peter. Peter's another guy that was brought in.
Yeah.
They learned that 2109 is interfering with their communications with Lucas, censoring them and changing them. And 2109 become antagonistic towards the guys from the 80s.
Right, okay.
They give the impression this is all like a really important experiment, and they're kind of mucking it up.
Yeah.
So 2109 says it's better to have no knowledge at all than to have a distorted view of the truth because of your lack of understanding. We, 2109, are not without compassion, but if you continue to disrupt our experiments, then it's likely that you will find your destiny. We shall, however, allow one more communication with you so that you may ask your profound questions. We shall answer as you wish. If in terms of physics, then it shall be so. But remember that our limits are set by your own abilities and not ours. There's no one after the man you call Lucas. The chance factor will not reoccur again in a time span that your kind can relate to. Other messages from 2109 describe the mechanisms of poltergeist phenomena. They tell Ken that by his activities he's unleashed this, and they're stopping his communication with Lucas until things cool down. And then Lucas is arrested for witchcraft, and the sheriff that arrested him starts sending the messages. So this gets more and more complicated and complicated.
So he finds the box of lights?
Yeah, they put pressure on him to release Lucas, and he eventually does. They learn that Lucas Wainman isn't actually his name.
Right.
It's a pseudonym. His real name is Thomas Harden.
Right.
2109 is aghast, and basically they lose the plot. So they say, at present you have two Lucases running around your house. If at any time the two are to meet, we cannot explain the devastation that will erupt within the time continuum. We must stop communication with Lucas 1, but we cannot interfere with the other.
Yeah.
You must help by giving us every word uttered by Thomas Harden from the second you received his true name. You must also state how much information you have on this man, everything word for word. Avoid any other communication you may have with him. Desperation, be quick. So Ken and Debbie get around this by leaving notes for Lucas on paper, and then Debbie finds this Lucas's writing on the bits of paper.
Right. Getting stranger and stranger, so he's not just communicating on a computer now.
They ask 2109 if they can get rid of the poltergeist so that he can talk with Lucas again, and they reply, yes, we shall hold back as best we can on the PG. Sorry you find us so friendly. Ask the man David what he thinks of conjectural tachyons and what are his theories of causality. What answer does he have for its paradox? Cheers, 2109.
Right.
Ken does know David who is interested in tachyons and had in fact been giving a class on them that morning. Further messages from 2109 talk about time travel and dimensions, etc. They say they're in what you would call a tachyon universe, but your understanding is incorrect. We will give you a plotting of a star next time. We move at a speed so that we cover every point in your time and universe. We have no form. We feed off and need energy that you will not have heard of. So I wonder if they may be aliens. The people from the future.
The 2109 people.
Yeah, because if they're green but they have no form and all this weird stuff and living in a tachyon universe and stuff, they're maybe from like another dimension. Maybe it's some sort of weird dimensional thing. Now Lucas continued his messages until the 21st of March 1985. He claimed the other citizens of Dodleston had accused him of witchcraft, and he planned to flee after receiving threats that the villagers planned to kill him and burn down his house. He's writing a book about his experiences, and his last message was as follows. He said, it's good to know that all will change, and there are true men to follow like Ken. Though 400 years is a long time, and there's much to happen to mankind. It's sad that men must learn righteousness from their ugly ways. He says, one day you will all sit down at my table for wine and meat by the river in Oxford, where we shall read each other's books and laugh, and we shall speak of truth and good men, watching Oxford change together for evermore. In your time my book is old, but I shall not go to my God until it's written, and then we will all be truly embraced. My love to you all, I shall await you in Oxford. Thomas Harden. 2109 says that Thomas wrote the book in Latin and placed it in a secure place. They say, the description says, "Me writes this in the hope that mine fellows will one day find this book, then my overlands be not so distant." And after that, they never heard from Lucas or 2109 ever again. So we don't know if it was a result of a time slip, the work of a cunning poltergeist, or simply one of the first examples of a computer hoax.
A big hoax. The BBC microcomputer contained a chip called the Edward II chip. It was made by Clyde Technics Limited in I can't pronounce this Welsh name, but Clyde, which is 11 miles from Dodleston, and half of that from the school where they borrowed the computer from.
Right.
And
that's a weird coincidence, isn't it?
It's an old type of chip that could be affected by RF signals and changed and modified by radio frequency signals. So somebody could have hacked a BBC micro locally, who was maybe outside the place, near it, hacked it in some way.
That's an interesting
with
explanation.
A radio frequency.
That's something I never even considered.
That's something I found out on Reddit.
That's quite interesting. We've got a little bit of research just as we did the program.
It's an old kind of chipset apparently in these computers, but it could have been hacked in this way. So that is maybe somebody from the manufacturers having a bit of a laugh.
There's 3 options, and I will read them in the order of likelihood. The most likely thing is that it's Ken is a very clever writer of fiction. That's option 1. Option 2 is what you said, an elaborate hoax. I mean, the Dodleston thing.
Yeah,
that's interesting about the geography. Number 3 is it's some sort of weird dimensional thing. Number 4, it could be demonic energies just messing around. These are all options, like, you know.
There's lots of books and things out there about the Dodleston Messages. So
I think you can get one on that book on Amazon. Can't you? What was it?
Vertigo Plane.
Vertigo Plane. Yeah, I think you can get it on Amazon. Might be worth checking out.
By Ken Webster. Okay, thank you for that. We'll be back again in a moment or two with our weird shorts. Don't go away. Hello, you're listening to Weirdly Enough. You can get us at weirdlyenough.com or wherever you find your podcasts. Do remember to rate and subscribe. Give us a good review. It helps get us out there. So this really looked like an April Fool to me when I saw it. Did you see any April Fool? I didn't see any real April Fools.
Not really. You see, it's a bit like gags.
Yeah.
The art of the gag is dying. Nobody tells jokes anymore.
No.
I remember when
they're all cancelled, all the comedians.
Whenever I was in my salad days, or even before my salad days, it used to be a thing. Those were the days of the rag mag, etc. And people it used to be a thing in society.
Yeah.
When men would gather after dinners and whatnot, you'd have to kind of do a turn and tell jokes and stuff like that. It was like a socially expected thing.
Okay.
But now it's declined, and now the art of the April Fool has also declined as well.
Well, I thought this one was an April Fool, but it came out on the 30th of March, so it's just before April. And this was from Dyson. The vacuum people have announced a very unusual wearable air purifier product with a pair of noise cancelling headphones built in. So this is essentially, it's like a big pair of headphones and then this face mask that goes over the front of your face, and it purifies the air as you breathe it.
Right.
It's the weirdest looking thing. Have you seen it? It's
no, I haven't seen it.
It looks kind of like a mini vacuum cleaner you wear in your face with the headphones, but this really strange face mask that apparently purifies the air that you breathe. The purification system is capable of filtering city fumes and pollutants and uses miniature versions of Dyson's existing technology.
It sounds like something that one might wear in one of the more esoteric nightclub signs, if you know what I mean.
Right, yeah.
One
of those silent discos, you mean?
Well, no, I was thinking more, when people are sort of pushing the boundaries of human experience, shall we say?
Yes. Okay.
I'm not sort of going into it any more than that, but you can get an idea.
The giant fruit and veg has been a trope of late here on Weirdly Enough. We're just getting over the shocking revelation that Doug, the giant potato from New Zealand, wasn't a potato to begin with at all, but some sort of fungus or something. I don't know.
Right.
But Chatty Ariel, a farmer from Israel, has gone to extraordinary lengths to make sure his attempt has made it into the Guinness Book of Records for a giant strawberry. Right. He kept the fruit on ice for over a year until the people from the Guinness Book were able to verify it. And it was indeed the biggest strawberry on record, beating a previous record holder from Japan. So it's a truly international contest. Mr. Ariel did admit that after keeping the fruit so long, it was no longer very pretty as it was. It was all frozen and all. But yeah, he's got the biggest strawberry, 289 grams. The previous record holder tipped the scales at 250 grams.
It is a bit of a trope on the show. We always go back to these large legumes.
Yeah, and why not? This is a really strange rule in New Orleans. It's a racist and little known rule which dated back over 100 years. It banned jazz music and dancing in public schools in New Orleans, and it's set to be overturned. The rule has been ignored for decades in the city where jazz was invented and is taught widely in schools along with marching bands playing the music for their dance teams during the carnival season. School board member Katrina Budwin said, "Our schools played a major role in the development of jazz in this instance, and in this instance only. We're glad that the policy was ignored by our students in schools." The rule first came to light after the director of the Greater New Orleans Collaborative Charter School, Ken DeCoit, read a book called Chord Changes on the Chalkboard, How Public Schools Teachers Played Shape Jazz and the Music of New Orleans by Al Kennedy, who found out the policy when he undertook research for the book. DeCoit went on to say, "It's like if Colorado passed a rule banning students from looking at the Rocky Mountains." So there you are. Jazz was actually banned until very, very recently in public schools.
There's a lot of kind of strange rules out there. There's a rule on the books that no Welshman should be within the city limits of Chester after sundown.
Yeah,
and
makes sense.
If a Welshman is found in the city centre after sundown, he's liable to be arrested.
Right? Yeah. Strange.
So yeah, I would imagine if you're like a male Welsh person over like a town, then you shouldn't be in Chester.
Yeah. And this is strange, and we're starting to hear more and more stories about Qatar. I like Qatar just because it's a Q word without a U after it.
Do you know what I thought you were talking about there? I was you know when you got like a blocked nose.
Yeah, no, this is Qatar.
Qatar, as in the country.
The small but extremely rich emirate of Qatar will be more and more in the news in the coming months as the nation prepares to host the Football World Cup. But one clinic in the historic centre of Doha caught my eye. This is the Souk Waqif clinic. It looks like any modern state-of-the-art hospital, but if you take a closer look, you'll see a different type of patient. The hospital only treats falcons.
Right.
Birds of prey, yeah.
Yeah, because falconry is a big thing in Qatar.
Yeah. Used today as a status symbol, falcons have long been revered on the Arabian Peninsula for their hunting prowess. Drawings of the creatures first appeared on cave walls as early as the Paleolithic period, and to this day the art of falconry is still passed down through the generations of Qatar. Hospitals like Souk Waqif offer expert care to sick and wounded hawks, which number around 30,000 a year. One common treatment is falcon nail filing, because their move from living in the desert to city life in opulent homes has meant that birds find it difficult to sharpen their talons. So it's just a big posh vets really for eagles.
Interesting.
Anyway, next week on this show we're going to be talking about lizard
people. Yep.
It sounds like a song by the Shaman. Lizard people. I'm sure it's going to be good though.
They're a very underrated band actually. Do you remember they had a track called Boss Drum? Rhythm Eternal from a Distant Time, and it was actually really profound. It was like how like rhythm is inherent to human evolution. It was like pretty deep for like an idle dance tune, like, you know.
I know, yeah.
You know?
Do you know what I found out recently? Do you remember that song Sadness by Enigma? It was big in the 80s, and it was like Gregorian chant.
Yes.
You know that's not actually about the emotion, sadness.
I do, yes, I know what you're going to say.
But it's about the Marquis de Sade.
Yes, I only found out about that quite recently.
Was that an idiotic eureka moment on my part? Does everybody know that?
It blew my mind because, right, and there's a whole thing. Right, I'll try and keep this brief because our podcasts are becoming like the longest podcast known to man.
No, they're not. Really, they're not. I listen to some terrible long ones. You lose the will.
What's the deal with all these live streams now? There's you see these people doing these 3-hour live streams. There's literally no subject on earth that's actually that interesting.
There must be people sitting watching them. I don't know.
Yeah, I know. But anyway, are you aware of the late great writer Anne Rice?
Yes. Yes.
She did all the vampire stuff and kickstarted the modern obsession with vampires. And so. And all the rest, but quite a good film, Interview with the Vampire,
yeah.
But anyway, I don't know if you're aware, but again, this is a family show, so I need to be careful how I phrase it. But,
is it?
She wrote under a pseudonym called A.N. Roclair, I think it was, about people hearing the more esoteric sort of practices, yeah. And basically, what was it she wrote? Yes, she wrote one called Exit to Eden about this chap who gets a job on this island where people do all these esoteric practices and all the rest of it. But they made a film which is kind of crazy. It's nothing like the book.
Yeah.
They kind of made it into a comedy.
Right.
And had like Rosie O'Donnell and this bloke who, his name escapes me, but he's in all those stupid 80s comedies.
Chevy Chase or something?
Not Chevy Chase, but you're in the general direction of Chevy Chase. But it was weird because it's like in 2 parts. There's this kind of serious kind of exploration of, you know, human sexuality, basically.
Yeah,
but paired with like this kind of buddy cop kind of thing going on, and it's an absolute mess of a film. It's an interesting experiment, but it's, you know, you can say why it kind of bombed at the box office because one part of the audience is going to be, you know what I mean, it doesn't gel together. It's like 2 different films spliced together. But anyway, there's a scene where this lady who runs the establishment discovers herself and what she's into, and the theme tune is Sadness, yeah. Yeah, I was like, oh, it's kind of strange. So I looked into it, and then I discovered that it's about the freaking Marquis de Sade.
Sade.
Yeah. And I just thought it was, as you said, you know. So yeah, how did you find out about that? Because I think
it was Animatronic.
Yeah.
Her radio show. She broadcasts from out Brooklyn at the minute, but on BBC. Radio 2 on BBC Sounds, and I think it was on her dance devotion show, I think it's called, which is quite good if you're into your dance music. It's a good listen. Anyway, thank you for joining us. Back next week with Lizard People.
Thanks for listening to Weirdly Enough. Remember to subscribe to get the latest edition as soon as it drops. And don't forget to leave a review. Email us about anything we've discussed or with your own weird tale at podcast@weirdlyenough.com.